Okay, so applications, word problems, dealing with our rational expressions. Really, you're only going to get one type of problem, and it deals with figuring out how long it takes for something to happen. So you got two people who one person can finish the job in this amount of time, the other person can finish the job in this amount of time. How much time would it take for them to finish it together? That's the kind of problem we're dealing with. So the formula you're going to use for these is time together over person number one. So however long it takes for the first person to complete the job. Plus the time together over person number two. If we had a third person, it would be time together over person number three. But it's going to equal 1, because it always equals one whole job. So whatever job they're doing one whole job. That's what we're trying to figure out. So if we take a look at our first one here, we have, suppose it takes Janet 6 hours to paint her room if she works alone, and it takes Carol 4 hours to paint the same room if she works alone. They want to know how long will it take for them to paint the room together. So we're trying to figure out how long it takes for them to paint it together. So that's actually going to be our x. So we're going to have our x in our numerator. And we'll put Janet first. It takes her 6 hours. So it's going to be x over 6. Time together over Janet's time. Plus time together over Carol's time, which would be a 4. And it's going to equal 1. Because again, we're looking for how long it would take for them to paint together one whole room. So now these are just like what we were doing last time. Solving our fraction equations, we need to get a common denominator. So between a 6, a 4, and a 1, what would be our common denominator? What? There's actually a couple of different ones we could use. You could just multiply them together and use 24. Some people would say 12, because that's another number both 6 and 4 go into. 12 would also work as a common denominator. I find it's usually easier just to multiply the two of them together, though. So to get 6 into a 24, I got to multiply times 4, which means I also multiply my top times 4. So that gives me a 4x. What do we multiply the second one times? Times 6, so that gives us a 6x. And then the last one would have to be times 24, because that had a denominator of 1. So it equals 24. So now we have our common denominator. We can cross it out, and we can solve our numerator just like any normal equation. So my 4x plus my 6x would give me a 10x equals 24. Divide by 10, and x equals 2.4. So it would take them 2.4 hours. Which makes sense. If you got two people painting a room, it should take less time than just one person by themselves. Now, the one thing you have to be careful of is sometimes they like to ask that in minutes. How would I convert my 2.4 hours into minutes? You would just multiply it times 60, and then it would give you the answer in minutes if they asked for it. All right, let's take a look at our second one. It takes Tom 4 hours to build a fence. If he hires Jack to help him, together they can do the job in 3 hours. That should say hours. I don't even know what word that is. Hours. If Jack was to build the fence alone, how long would it take him? So we know this time how long it takes for them to build the fence together. How long does it take for them to do it together? So our numerator is 3. Tom can do it in 4. So our first fraction is 3 over 4. Second fraction, our x is going to be in the denominator. So we're looking for how long would it take for Jack to do it by himself. So 3 over x. And again, still equals 1. It will always equal 1. So between 4x and 1, what would be our common denominator? 4x. Again, just multiply them together if you need to. 4x, 4x, 4x. Bless you. So that first fraction we would have to do times x. So I get a 3x there. Our second fraction we would have to do times 4. So that would give me a 12. And the 1 would have to be times the whole thing, 4x. So again, now we cross out our denominator, if you don't drop the pen. What the heck? Alright, so cross it out. 3x plus 12 equals 4x. Subtract my 3x. And we get x equals 12. So how long does it take for Jack to build the fence by himself? 12 hours. It takes Jack 12 hours. So in looking at our last one, we got Sue can paint a chair in 3 hours and Jerry can paint the same chair in 2 hours. Working together, how long would it take for them to paint 10 chairs? So first thing we want to figure out, using our formula, time together over Sue's time plus time together over Jerry's time to equal a 1. So we'll figure out how long does it take for them to paint 1 chair, and then just multiply it times 10. That will give us how long it takes for them to paint 10 chairs. So our common denominator this time would be a what? 6. Our first fraction I would have to do times 2, so I get a 2x. Second fraction would be times 3, so we get a 3x. And then we got to do the 1 times a 6. So we would get 2x plus 3x, so 5x equals 6. Divide by 5, we would get 6 over 5. Or what would that be as a decimal? 1 point what? .2 if my brain is working correctly. So again, that's how long it takes for them to paint 1 chair, 1.2 hours. So if I take my 1.2, multiply it times 10, it will take 12 hours for them to paint 10 chairs. So then we'll write our sentence. It will take 12 hours to paint